Okay, we are about to open the lines. Some people already joining us, as I can see. I just want to ask also our speakers if you can mute yourself for now. As people are joining us, we'll take a few more seconds to let people sign in. Good morning, everyone. If you are here in California, good afternoon if you are in Israel or wherever you are around the world. We are about to start our webinar about the Bird Foundation call for companies, call for proposals. It's coming up in, give us about 30 more seconds. We just want to make sure that we let enough time for people to join our session. So bear with us for a few more seconds as I see people are still signing in, and then we will start. So in the meantime, while you join us, I want to remind our audience, if you want, you can always ask us questions. There is the chat box on your screen. Use it. This is a webinar format, so it's just easier if you log your questions. We can try and answer all of them during the session, and if we're not, we'll be in touch afterwards with some replies. So feel free to use the chat box to send us your questions. Okay, I'm just checking the list of attendees. People are still joining us, and we are very excited to be here with you here today. We are going to talk about the Bird Foundation call for companies. We have some great speakers with us today, so we're going to have a robust presentation of different opportunities between California and Israel. We'll hear some statistics, we'll hear some stories, and hopefully there is also an opportunity for you guys listening to us today to enjoy some of those coming up with the Bird Foundation. Few more seconds just to make sure that we have our guest joining us. Again, good morning if you are here in California, and good afternoon if you are anywhere else. My name is Sharon Vanek. I'm the Executive Director with the California-Israel Chamber of Commerce. The CICC has been around for over 20 years now, really trying to present opportunities for different industries, stakeholders to meet, do business together, research, education, and of course also investments. I'm very happy to be here today as your moderator for this session, where we're going to talk about the coming call for companies, call for proposals by the Bird Foundations. And for that, I would like to really welcome our guests today. We have great speakers. We prepared for you a lot of interesting stories. I'm going to start, of course, with Shlomi Kaufman, the Consul General to the Pacific Northwest, based in San Francisco, and oversees the overall relationship between Israel and the US. Hi, Shlomi. Great to have you here with us.
Good morning, Sharon. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll hear more from Shlomi in a second about what the consulate is doing, not just economically, but also in other areas to foster the relationship between the two countries. Also with us, we have Sean Randolph. He's a Senior Director of the Bay Area Council Economic Institute, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a public-private partnership that works to foster a competitive economy in California and specifically focus on the Bay Area. Hi, Sean, good to have you.
Good morning, Sharon. Great to be here.
Great. And Sean is going to tell us in a few seconds about the research that he led with the the Bay Area Council for Economic Institute to really crunch the numbers and to show the details of the economic ties between California and Israel for over a decade. So looking forward to hear that report outcomes. With us, we also have Maya Vadi Shoshani. Hi, Maya. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Great to be here.
Maya is the Director of Business Development for the Bird Foundation, and she's based here in California. And she's going to tell us all about the Bird Foundation, the mission, the call for companies that we have, and how you can be also part of it. So looking forward to hear more from Maya. We also have with us Dr. Duncan Earl, who's the President and CTO of Cubitech Inc. And with him, we have also Ori Levin. Ori is the VP Product Management for Raycall, which is an Israeli startup. And these two represent two companies that jointly won a Bird Foundation grant back in 2019. So we're really looking forward to hear about what they are doing and, of course, learn from their experience about the process and how they work with the Bird Foundation. So with no further ado, I want to start with Shlomi Kaufman, Consul General for Israel for the Pacific Northwest. Shlomi, mic is yours.
Thank you, Sharon, and good morning, everyone. Good morning for all those who are joining us from here in California, from East Coast, from Israel, and from wherever you are, to listen and learn and get educated about not only what we're doing here in California and connecting between Israel and California businesses, but also what we're doing to promote and foster U.S. and Israeli business connection, but more than business connection, just the ties between our two countries. First of all, I would like to congratulate you, Sharon, for your fantastic job and for leading this seminar. Thank you for doing it so impressively, and of course, thank you for you and other people who were working behind the scenes with California Chamber of Commerce to foster and support the business, the ties and the ecosystem between the Israeli and Californian ecosystem. Sean, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming coming and sharing with us your story, the story that you wrote about Israel and and California and Israel ties, and you will have some special insights. And Maya, thank you for the fantastic work that you've been doing, and for Bird Foundation, which is bringing so many Israeli and Californian businesses and beyond that, and really supporting this phenomenal relationship on business, on investment, but which brings also our values together, and all of you together. I'm just congratulating for you for working day in and day out to make it happen. We at the consulate are very happy to have partners like you and to support your work and to work together alongside, not just in California, but also in the area that we're covering, which is Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, which is the Pacific Northwest, and really to bring and teach and educate about the opportunities and what's happening in Israel, but also what's happening, teach the people here about what's happening, what's happening in Israel, and vice versa. So people and businesses, investors and startups can find the next step and the next opportunity for them to expand their businesses, to expand ties, and really make it deeper and make it more expensive. So with that, I would really want to congratulate you and thank you for everything that you're doing. We are here at the consulate with our economic department here to help you, and whatever we can do to help and support that, we'll be happy to do so. So thank you, and back to you, Sharon. Good luck.
Thank you, Shlomi, for that. I want to remind our audience, if you have questions as we going to start our presentations now, please use the chat box to send us your questions as we go. We'll try to answer the questions if we have time during this session, but if we don't, I promise you that we will be back with answers. We'll send you an email and we will make sure to reply your questions. With that, I'd like to move forward. I'm going to give the stage to Sean Randolph to tell us about a very interesting research that led to a report. If anybody wants to have a copy of this report, also please let us know. We'll be happy to either mail you the hard copy or a link to read the full report. Sean spent about a year, right, Sean, interviewing tons of people. You know, we all hear about Startup Nation, we hear about Silicon Valley, we hear about the relationship, but I think this is really the first time where all of this information was gathered into a comprehensive, cohesive report that put it in numbers. Sean, why don't you tell us more about it?
Great. Well, thanks very much, Sharon, and welcome everybody to today's program. So I basically run a think tank that focuses on the economy of San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and California. And we look often at how our economy here connects uniquely to our most interesting and most important business partners around the world. And I was privileged to work with the consulate and many other people over the last year producing a report on Israel's technology connections to the Bay Area and to California. It is full of detail. And as Sharon said, we can provide a hard or soft copy afterward if you want to drill in more deeply. But I'm going to try to keep my remarks this morning focused on the R&D aspects of what we found, and reduce a long presentation full of detail to about 5 minutes, hitting the high points. So our basic objectives here. One was to address this question of what makes Israel a unique partner for California and what makes it uniquely productive of both technology, innovation, and of startups, and to look in particular at how deep is the connection in technology between California and Israel. We all know about Startup Nation. It's been around a long time as a concept, but we really wanted to quantify and more deeply understand what was going on as a way to identify more deeply what are the future opportunities for technology and innovation cooperation. Next. So to get into that, we looked at the innovation system in Israel to ask why is it so productive of technology, and there were a number of pretty clear drivers. One was the highest investment in R&D to GDP ratio in the world, close to 5%, which is pretty remarkable. A very high dense concentration of startups. You know, for a pretty small population, there's close to 2,000 startups. 71 Israeli founded unicorns around the world, of which almost 30 are in Israel. But the fact that so many are outside of Israel shows how this innovation and this entrepreneurial activity has spread globally from Israel. Looking at kind of what has driven this, one factor, of course, was the immigration in the 1990s of almost 1 million, about 900,000 immigrants from the former Soviet Union, which brought in a huge infusion of engineering and technology talent, which really fueled the economy and the tech economy. And then the government has played a very active role helping to jumpstart the creation of a venture capital industry through the Israel Innovation Authority, leading a variety of initiatives that have led to things such as Startup Nation Central, that really focuses on kind of connecting all of these startups around the world, and sector-focused initiatives that are private at this point in specific fields such as health and agriculture and several more. So there's a really strong foundation that provides kind of direction and framework to a lot of this research and entrepreneurial activity. Next. So another part of the underlying infrastructure for the research are some really strong universities, of which there's about a half a dozen. Technion, Hebrew, Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion of the Negev, Haifa, IDC Herzliya, now renamed as Reichman, as well as the Weizmann Institute. So each one of these has their specialties, each has a very strong research base. And then you layer on top of that the impact, which I think is also unique in the world, really, of universal military service. So everybody basically has to go through military service. And within the Israel Defense Force, you have a number of units, the best known being Unit 8200, which is essentially a cyber intelligence unit. And it really very consciously recruits a lot of the best and brightest from out of school system in Israel. It gives them tools and it pushes them out toward really challenging issues to solve. And I think by putting people through the fire of kind of the real world experience of dealing with cyber issues and other security issues in Israel, the graduates come out with a real esprit de corps and real life experience that's really invaluable in starting companies. So if you're dealing with an Israeli company and you're dealing with somebody in technology, especially if you're dealing with a technology entrepreneur, the odds are you'll be working with somebody not only who's a graduate of the Israeli military, but very likely from 8200 or one of these elite security and cyber units. Next. So drilling on California, we looked at what are our companies doing around technology in Israel, and then we looked at what are Israeli companies doing here in California. So there's at least three elements of that. One is foreign direct investment, and this was pretty remarkable. I was really surprised by what we found. It goes way beyond what was written years ago in Startup Nation. So first, there are we could find about 150 foreign direct investment projects by California companies in Israel, of which most are from here in Silicon Valley. So these are individual investment transactions, and this is technology. So most of it is focused on R&D. So we're keeping with this research theme today. Software, IT services, semiconductors, really big. 123 companies here in California, which is a lot, have invested almost $23 billion in research in Israel. And again, these companies were predominantly concentrated in Silicon Valley. A big focus is R&D centers. And this, again, is something I found to be pretty remarkable. So there's about 400, more or less, R&D centers in Israel run by multinationals, which is pretty extraordinary in itself. Of those, 96 or about 25% are California companies, mostly again from Silicon Valley, but not exclusively. So you take that 96 and you compare it to where else these R&D centers are coming from around the world. We found there were 13 from the UK, 14 from France, 15 from Germany, 7 Japan, 6 from India, and some from other countries. So California's R&D investment in Israel is outsized compared to countries around the world. So it just shows the depth of the technology connection. Another aspect of this is acquisitions. So California companies are responsible for about a fifth of all the acquisitions of Israeli companies from anywhere in the world. And more than 40% of all acquisitions of Israeli companies coming from the United States. If you shifted to talk about the value of the acquisitions, here in California, we're responsible for about half the value of all acquisitions of companies in Israel from anywhere in the world, and about 70% of the value of all acquisitions coming from the United States, more than 76 billion. So again, that is a huge investment and a huge stake in the technology system in Israel. Next, please. So flipping to the California side, this is mirrored in what's going on here. We found close to 60 California companies have invested in Israel, and that there are about 750 Israeli startups that have been recipients of investment by California companies. And we are involved in a majority of all the major investment rounds in Israeli companies. There are, as of a year or so ago, there's probably more now, close to 500 Israeli startups that are operating here in California. And we're home to more Israeli-founded unicorns than anywhere else in the United States. Last count, we found about 22. So back on the research side of this, supporting the technology conversation, we've got large alumni groups from all those universities I mentioned here in California. Another group called Science Abroad links Israeli postdocs, of which there are many. at the universities here, Stanford, Berkeley, UCSF, UCLA, many other universities. We find strong institutional research collaboration, for example, around space technology with NASA Ames Research Center, and lots of research activity, really pretty intense, in fact, with University of California at Davis, and strong institutional ties around ag between them and universities in Israel. And I think to get to the topic you're going to be on today, binational research, and I'll let, of course, Maya talk about how BIRD operates, but there are three binational research foundations between the United States and Israel, where the United States government and the Israeli government have created endowments that will support a joint research by researchers, where one is Israeli, or one group is Israeli and the other is American. And when you look at that by state, and again, the three of them are BIRD, about industrial research, basically commercially oriented research, BARD, which is very similar, but for agricultural research, and then the Binational Science Foundation is more around basic theoretical research. California really dominates that landscape. We are by far in California the largest recipient in the United States. BIRD grants, close to 300. The last we looked, we are by far the largest recipient here in California of BARD, the agricultural grants, and we are definitely the largest recipient nationwide of Binational Science Foundation grants, more than 881 for basic fundamental research. Next, please. So just to pause for 1 second on startups, because a lot of this eventually gets connected to startups. Israel's market is small, so they tend to look to the US first when they look to grow. A lot of the engineering, again, going back to the skills base and the technology and innovation in Israel, is done in Israel. Very often the founders will move here to Silicon Valley or elsewhere in California. There are some changes in the pattern as more companies are staying private longer, waiting to be acquired, growing in Israel. Cash valuations are rising, but very, very strong primary connection between Israel and the US market, and reflected in a large number of highly successful Israeli companies, Israeli founded companies here in California, and especially in Silicon Valley. And the big focus on fintech, insurance technology, consumer tech, cybersecurity, thousands, many thousands of people employed there. And we see this mirrored also in Southern California, a lot of activity around water, ag, tech, health, and in the LA area, especially entertainment. Next. So this pointed us in the research toward, a question of where is this activity concentrated, which we think we know, but where is it most likely to be growing in the future? And we identified 6 specific fields and a broad one where we think the growth is going to be in the future and will continue. Of course, cybersecurity, extremely strong. Fintech, health tech, mobility, ag tech, very big, water and water tech, and AI as an underlying enabling technology that really enables a lot of other things, but very, very strong in Israel. And we think there's a lot of potential for commercial growth and for joint research in all of these areas, but it's certainly not an exclusive list. There's a lot outside these areas as well with opportunity. And I think there's one more slide, which is just to say that the research found that Israel is really a remarkable place by any standard for joint research, and with a lot of opportunities for commercializing that research. And we think that California is a unique partner globally for Israel, and Israel is a unique partner for California. And I think organizations like BIRD are there to enable that and to help that relationship grow. So we hope you find the conversation with Maya that's coming up right now helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, for that. Appreciate it. Appreciate your comments. And we learned so much about Startup Nation and of course on California in numbers. And one of the really remarkable points that you mentioned earlier is that 286 projects here in California were funded by the Bird Foundation. And I bet our callers, our audience would love to know how they can be part of these $34 million that were already invested by the Bird Foundation in those technology R&D projects. And this is really remarkable. And for that, I'm very happy to have Mayavadi Shoshani with us, the Director of Business Development in our region for the Bird Foundation, to really tell us what is the Bird Foundation. We keep hearing that name and people joined in because they want to know what is Bird Foundation, what is the call for companies that you have open right now, what do they need to do in order to be part of it, and how you can help them with the team through the process. Maya, floor is yours.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if you see my slide. You do. So for all of you who are interested in US-Israeli collaboration, thank you for joining us and listening in today. I am Maya, the West Coast Director for the Bird Foundation. Who we are. BIRD is an acronym for Binational Industrial R&D. Although we are called a foundation, we are more like a federal funded industrial R&D program because all our funding comes from federal sources. We were established back in the 70s. We just celebrated our 44th birthday by the US and Israeli governments to support and promote innovation and collaboration between the countries. We use an endowment that both governments put in of $110 million to fund joint R&D projects between American and Israeli companies. Everything we do is for mutual benefit of the US and Israel. Before we go into our process, I wanted to show you who is on our board of governors, who is like the board of directors, deciding which project to award and fund. The board of governors is represented by senior officials from both governments, with two co-chairs, the associate director for innovation and industry services from NIST, the Department of Commerce, and the Israeli chief scientist, who is the chairman of the Israeli Innovation Authority. A big part of our work is to facilitate introductions. We are like matchmakers and help introduce companies to each other. And this is something important that I would like to emphasize here today. If you're listening in, if you are curious about our funding and you don't have a partner, this is a big part of our work. Reach out to us and we will try to help you find a partner, either an Israeli or an American. And then if those introductions becomes matches and they turn into projects, they can apply for our funding and submit a proposal. And we can potentially fund up to 50% of the combined R&D project budget, up to $1 million, and in some cases, $1.5 million for exceptional proposals. So how do we work? We support innovative R&D partnerships between American and Israeli companies. Generally, later in the R&D process, in a more advanced stage, but sometimes also more early stage, especially in our two sector-specific programs, the energy and the homeland security. We are able to provide non-dilutive funding up to $1 million per project. As I said, in some cases, 1.5, not more than 50% of the total cost budget. And this is called a conditional grant. If there is commercial success, and there will be repayments. If the project doesn't end in commercialization, it becomes a grant. We don't get any equity or IP rights. This is non-dilutive funding. And the budget is divided between the two partners according to the work share. Each partner should do a significant part of the tasks and the innovation. Ideally, it will be 50-50, but we can allow up to 30%, 70%. And the two partners will receive the relative match from BIRD to cover 50% of their R&D expenses. We try to help companies be successful and finish their project and their project in commercialization. So we look at the development part of the R&D in the broadest way possible. We include also initial stages of sales and marketing, as well as IT registration. And as I said, we get repayments as royalties if the project generates revenue. But the repayments are capped and non-dilutive. If you look at our investments in recent years, you can see that we are agnostic to sector, and we invest in all innovative technologies, excluding military-specific applications. So as you can see, we are really diverse, and we have the two special programs that I will talk about in a minute that focus also on energy and homeland security, but through our general call for proposals, we invest in any sector. We've been quite successful over the years. Since its inception, we have granted more than $370 million from that original endowment of $110 million. And we are very proud that we have helped generate above $10 billion directly and indirectly from projects that were funded through BIRD. This comes from other metrics than the sales and repayments. On the national level, we help job creation, capital raised, merger and acquisition, export, Israeli companies set office in the US, and US companies opening offices and R&D centers in Israel. So a lot of activity through the BIRD projects. This is the most important thing that I want to talk about and promote today. We issue a general call for proposals twice a year, every March and September. The next one is coming up now in March 1st with a deadline for executive summaries. This is a process where two partners, we ask partners, two unrelated companies, one from the US and one from Israel, will jointly submit a proposal for the development of innovative technologies and an open list of topics. The proposed project should demonstrate significant commercial potential and, of course, innovation. And we recommend for everyone considering this program to talk to us. If you have partners, or if you don't, we will help you find partners. Talk to us prior to submission of any paper, because we can also help guide you through the process. We can review the submission papers and provide feedback. The executive summary is submitted based on our template. Within a few days, we come back to the companies with a go, no go recommendation. And we will tell you if we recommend that you submit the full proposal. If we think you have good chances of winning the grant, we try to bring the success rate in the full proposal stage to about 40 to 50%. So we won't waste your time if we think you're not eligible or if you don't have good chances of winning. The final proposal will be reviewed by external reviewers from NIST and from the Israeli Innovation Authorities. It's a competitive process, and the decisions will be made in June by our Board of Governors. Here is the process as I just described. We have another opportunity coming up for Homeland Security. This was established through the DHS and the Israeli Ministry of Public Security. The deadline is coming up in April 25, it follows the same guidelines and procedures. The source of funding comes from these departments, and the topics are Homeland Security specific. We issue this once a year. We invite partners in this case, and can be either 2 companies or a company and a research institute, a university, to submit a proposal. If we are not sure, or you are not sure if you're eligible, please talk to us and we can check with our stakeholders if you are eligible. I can ask for a pre-ruling. The list of topics is on our website and in the call for proposals, as you can see in front of you. It's law enforcement technologies to combat cybercrime, secure critical infrastructure and public facilities, border protection, UAS, and first responders technologies. We also have a bird energy program funded by the DOE and the Israeli Ministry of Energy and the Israeli Innovation Authority. This is for renewable energy and energy efficiency, and a list of topics that is also on our website and in the call for proposals. The exact deadline is not published yet. On our website, you can still see the previous call, but those will be similar dates and probably end of June or beginning July, decisions in October, November. If you're interested, please talk to us. So as I said, it is a competitive process. The professional reviewers will look at the innovation. They're looking for a high level of innovation in the project, a good synergy between the partners, or a good complementary technologies, or challenging but good integration. It sometimes can be a pilot program project. And they also look that the companies identify that there is a good market opportunity and that they can quantify it, and that they can demonstrate that they have a commercialization strategy and know how to get to market. So why bird? On the national or state level, I think that we heard Sean talk about all the activities and benefits that came from the collaboration between Israel and the US, and our funding that did more than just sales. And I mentioned it before, the job creation, the capital raised. On the personal level or the company level benefits, of course, the funding is obviously a big help for companies. It helps support the project and the partnership. It's non-dilutive funding. We share the risks, and sometimes in a crucial time in the company's life. There is a validation or a stamp of approval that for projects selected that were reviewed by the external professional reviewers. We know that it helps raise funding and commercialization, and it also, the joint collaboration accelerates time to market. Thank you for listening. I want to give the stage to a success story. One of our more interesting projects that was funded not so long ago in 2019. We will hear today from Cubitech and Rycol, and I'll give you, Sharon, the floor. Thank you.
Thanks, Maya, for that. It's really remarkable the opportunity that companies have with the Bird Foundation and, of course, with other binational grants that are available. We want to hear a success story. We want to hear a recent one, right? Not something that happened 10, 20 years ago, but something which is really now live and kicking. And for that, we have with us Dr. Duncan Earl. Thank you so much for being with us. And we also have Ori Levin. And I'll start with you, Ori. first of all, Raikol, what do you guys do?
First of all, thank you, and thank you for the great presentation, Maya and Sean. Raikol is a non-linear crystal manufacturer. I know it sounds bombastic, but basically we manufacture material for lasers. So if I can share a presentation, I'll try to explain it and how this company relates to. So let me share, if you can see my screen right now.
We can get all your emails. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start. Raikol is industrial crystal company, founded like 25 years ago. We are about 85 people, and we are located in Rosh Hashanah in Israel. And we are industrial company. What we do, we grow crystals. We grow crystal for the laser industry. But what those crystals do, basically, they help laser to change colors. That's the most simple explanation from nonlinear crystal. They use our crystal to change the wavelength of the laser. It enables the laser to change colors. Why do we do that? We can go into a 2 hours explanation, but I'll skip that. So we have customers, industrial customers from all over the world, the big customers you are all familiar with. But what happened is that a few years ago, Raikol found itself in a new industry or in a new research. Raikol used to manufacture or is manufacturing a crystal called PPKTP. And it happened to be that this PPKTP is one of the essential materials that needed in order to create entangled photons. So what's entangled photons? Basically, they are a core aspects of quantum information system, of quantum computing. But what we do, that's the crystal in front of you. Basically, we send one blue photon into our crystals and we get 2 red photons. So that's really, really interesting. And that's relates to the quantum research. But Raikol is not a quantum research. Raikol is an industrial company with R&D material research. And we had this gap of knowledge that we needed to fill. And by meeting with Cubitech, we understood that Cubitech has the knowledge that can help us in order to achieve better products, to bring new products to the market, but also to bring them into the industry. And this is why we started talking to Cubitech, and I think Duncan will tell more about it later on, but eventually we managed to participate in a BIRD project that helped us to go into the industry and to expedite our product release. So what's the quantum results for Raikol after 2 years with BIRD and working with Cubitech and the market? So we have deep familiarity with the quantum markets right now. We are in contact with a lot of companies. We do very, very special stuff. We have new abilities to test our products, to our quantum products. So this is something that was done together with Cubitech and with Duncan. We are at research of new products for quantum application. And we have a new quantum group startup in quantum sensing, okay? So this all came in the last 2 years. And that's about it. So we'll answer question after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ori, for that. Super interesting. I wish my daughter was here and understand why she needs to study chemistry. Right. So
physics.
Physics and chemistry. Okay, so you understood that you need a partner that is strong in R&D, and this is where Duncan and his team came in. And Duncan, tell us about what you guys are doing.
Sure thing. So good morning, good evening for everyone. If I'll give you a quick overview of Cubitech and how we sort of became engaged in this partnership and our experience with the BIRD Foundation. Go ahead and share. You should see a picture of a cat with a funny shadow.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So just a little bit about Cubitech. So we are a California company. This was the first time we had ever applied for, made a BIRD proposal. We actually hadn't heard about it before, so it was really new to us and a very good experience. But Cubitech is a company that's been around for about 8 years. We are one of the leading US developers and manufacturers of components that serve the quantum computing, quantum networking, quantum communication space. If you're not familiar with the quantum industry, it's kind of in a nutshell, we're harnessing quantum mechanical properties to build communication systems that are cannot be eavesdropped on, or computers that are billions of times faster, or sensors that break the classical limits. So it's a real paradigm shift in a number of different industries. But the one that gets the most attention is computing, because that's likely to have the biggest impact. And Qubitekk is a major player in that area with some of the products that we develop. We are already partnered with a lot of US companies and US agencies to demonstrate how these quantum devices can be used for different applications. A lot of it is focused on networking and communications today, and then computing down the road. So I won't go into great detail on what our products do, but to pick up a little bit on what Ori said, there's a lot of interest in something called an entangled photon source, which was a product that we were already offering at Qubitekk, but we really needed to grow that product line and be able to add new features, go after new applications, make the product better. And with quantum being such a fast moving industry, we weren't able to just kind of slowly go through that process and use different vendors and make changes here and there. We really needed a partner that was well versed in the critical components of this system to work hand in hand with us. So on this slide, you can see we have a couple of different products, but one of them that is the most important is this entangled photon source. And deep inside of it is a crystal, which Raycole Crystals makes. Ours specifically was a periodically pulled KTP crystal. And we knew of Raycole previously and had bought crystals from them, but our partnership was not very strong with them. And they had other customers and they were busy with other things too. And so when we learned about the Bird Foundation through our VP of Business Development, a gentleman named Corey McClellan, when we really started to understand what the mission of that was, it was clear to us that here's a mechanism that's just perfect for this partnership. We need to have a much closer and deeper relationship with Raycole. We need to understand more about their product, which is always scary for a partner to share that information. And then we needed to share more about ours. So we needed some mechanism that would allow these two companies to work together. So that was what kind of pushed us together and why we were pursuing a Bird proposal. But the long and short of it is Raycole makes a very important crystal. They're really the best in the world at making that crystal. We incorporate that into our product, and to extend our product line and to make our current product line better, we needed a tighter partnership with them. We were successful in our proposal. In 2019, it was funded. It was, I believe, a 2-year effort. And there were a couple things that came out of that effort and a couple things that didn't. And I wanted to just highlight maybe both sides of that. The first is we have a much better and stronger relationship with Raycole, which is critical for two things. One, improving just the existing operation of our product. Their crystals can now be made to suit and optimized for our product. But also we now have a relationship which we can build on to make new products and to sort of extend that product line in the future. We also collaboratively developed a better way to really characterize the crystals for our particular application and improving the kind of quality control that can be used with these crystals. So we learned a lot. I hope they learned a lot from us as well. And it really seemed like a win-win situation. What it didn't produce was something we were really worried about early on. One was kind of like our IP, our intellectual property, getting conflated and causing some challenges. Really, what Raycole did and what we did, we were able to draw a pretty fine line, or fairly well-defined boundary between those two. And so as they developed their IP and we developed ours, it was something we could do separately, yet still collaborate together. And the other really nice feature, the other thing this project didn't involve, was a whole lot of overhead. We do a lot of DOE projects. We have contracts for the Navy and for other groups here in the US. There's often a lot of overhead just with maintaining those contracts and those grants. And I'm happy to say that with the Bird Foundation proposals, that really didn't occur there. There is, of course, oversight, and you've got to make sure to turn in reports, but really it was fairly minimal. And the result is, I believe it left both companies in a much more favorable position for fundraising, going out and raising capital, securing a larger market with the existing products, and producing better products down the road, or newer products down the road. So for us, we found the process to be fairly simple to apply, very easy to maintain and execute on. And in the end, it was a really strong partnership that resulted with our Israeli partners. I believe that's my last slide. I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Duncan, for sharing this information. And with these positive notes, Ori, I actually want to ask you, so we heard from Duncan about their side of an experience working together and submitting the Bird Foundation proposal. Can you share some insights from your perspective, from Raikol Crystal's perspective? How did the process work?
So for us, like UBTech, we had a great experience. I actually did my homework. I went to speak with the CEO, the CFO, in order to understand how was the process from terms of getting the grant and the process afterward. So it was really easy, low bureaucracy or little bureaucracy project. We basically had this meeting. We encourage you guys to ask questions, the Bird Foundation questions. We met with them. They told us what we should do, how we should fill the forms. They informed us.
When you say them, you mean with the Bird Foundation?
It's the Bird Foundation. Yeah, they helped us actually all the way from submitting the form and getting the grant, and helping us along the way to submit the project reports. We did innovation, the Israeli Innovation Authority grants before, and working with the Bird is much more simpler and easy to do. Guys, that's the truth. And actually along the way, we benefited in additional ways, because Birds are doing PRs all the time, and we got some media coverage, and we got also introduced to other companies along the way. And I went from department to department, from the CFO to the project, and they're all praising Bird for this project.
Great, thank you for that. And Duncan, I have a question for you. You prepared those slides with what happened and what didn't happen. It's fantastic. But you have an audience here that wants to get some, I guess, some tips from your experience. And I'm happy to hear it's a positive one. If you had to do it again, can you give them your 5 cents?
So if we had to do it again, of course we would, and we do it a little bit more aggressively. So we were a little hesitant because we didn't understand the process. We had applied to other institutions, and there's always lots of hoops you have to jump through. But knowing now sort of how easy that process was, we would have pursued it a lot earlier. The other thing that I think we would have done a little differently, we already had a little bit of knowledge about Raikol, and so they were kind of an easy partner to team with. Now, what we learned after we started partnering with them is they were an incredible company that really had a one-of-a-kind technology that really could not be replaced by any other partner. So we got very lucky in that our Israeli partner was exceptional, and we hadn't really done our homework, but we found that out later. Doing it again, we, of course, if we were with a different partner, we would dig a little bit deeper, really try and find the right partner and the right fit, and utilize some of those connections between Israel and California to help make those relationships. So we got lucky, and it may be harder for others, but it was a really good relationship for us. By accident, we would, second time around, definitely make sure we put more effort into that. I don't want that to make it sound like we weren't happy with Raikol. Raikol was awesome. It was just we normally would do more investigation.
Great. So So we hear from you guys that, you know, one way to approach a bird foundation call for companies is actually go to, you know, someone who you know, someone you work with. It can be your customers, it can be someone, you know, one of your suppliers, maybe distributors, someone that you already work, and you can openly talk about this opportunity. Maya, what other ways can you guys help if there is a company that want to approach the Bird Foundation, but they don't have a partner? How can you help them?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing is for us, either myself or the rest of the Bird team, to have a conversation with the company to try and understand your technology and which project you are thinking of pursuing, and then understanding what are the capabilities of your potential partner, and trying to create a list of companies that we can approach with the value proposition to interest them in partnering with you. So that is part of our mission to try and make introductions. So please reach out to us. Our email or phone numbers are on our website. So talk to me or the rest of the team. And we will try to help you before the deadline find a partner. And if we don't make it to this March deadline, there's always the next call in September. We've been doing it for so many years, every March and September. And if you are interested in the two sector specific programs, there is the April opportunity for Homeland Security and the July opportunity for energy. I saw that we have a question from CEO of a company who is Israeli and lives in the US. So for us, you are an American or an Israeli company. When applying to Bird, what we look for is the location of your R&D. So if your R&D is in Israel, but you live in the US or the company is registered in the US, as long as you have a subsidiary and the location of their R&D is in Israel, you'll be considered an Israeli company. So you will have to partner with an unrelated company in the US in order to apply to Bird. If your R&D is in the US, you can be an American company for Bird purposes, and you can apply with another partner in Israel, as long as there is you are unrelated, or at least not more than 50% ownership in the company. And I'd be happy to answer more offline.
Thank you, Maya, for answering that question. My next question is for Ori, but I want to ask our audience, while Ori is working on his answer, if you have a question, if you want to somebody from the Bird Foundation to reach out to you, please use the chat box, leave us your name, your email, your phone number. Make sure that somebody from the Bird Foundation will reach out to you. So please take this opportunity. We have a couple of more minutes. Reach out to us through the chat box. Just leave your name and some contact information, and somebody will reach out to you. Ori, question to you. Can you share how long did the process take you from the minute your management decided, okay, we have a green light, we are going to work with our partners and see how we can approach, how can we get the money from, or win the bid from the Bird Foundation? Is it weeks, months, days? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember precisely, but I know it was a fast process. Since the moment we decided and we approached, we actually been invited to the Bird Foundation offices. They told us what to do. We submitted, and then we got answer within weeks, if I remember correctly. So it was an easy process. Even when we had issues along the way, someone from the Bird office actually helped us to resubmit or to change whatever we needed. So it didn't took long, and it didn't take long, and it didn't also take a lot of effort to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I do see that some people already shared their contact information in the chat box for our Bird Foundation team to see, and they will reach out to you. Unfortunately, I have some other questions for you all, but unfortunately, we reached to the end of the hour, and I know people are busy. So first of all, I want to thank our audience for actually listening up. You have a lot of information on the Bird Foundation website. If you want to reach out to Maya, Maya is going to quickly put her contact information in the chat box for you to see. I hope you can see it. If not, you can always reach out to us either through the consulate or through the CICC or directly to the Bird Foundation. I also want to thank our guests today and hear about your experience, and thank you for taking the time to share it with our audience. We wish you best of luck continuing the relationship between the two companies and doing great stuff with the products that you all develop. So thank you, Duncan, and thank you, Ori, for that. I want to thank Maya and the entire Bird Foundation team in the US. I know you have your colleagues also. We focus here on California, but you have your colleagues also in Texas and on the East Coast. If we have people that listen to us and they are not from the West Coast region, please reach out to your local Bird Foundation representative.
Yeah,
Last
definitely.
but not least, last but not least, of course, the Consulate General of Israel to the Pacific Northwest, Shlomi Kaufman. Any last words for us?
Well, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for listening. Thank you for your amazing commitment to strengthening the ties between Israel, California, and Israel, United States. Maya, Sharon, keep doing a good job, and Duncan and Ori, just good luck. Good luck to you, and thank you for your partnership.
Okay, thank you all for that. This session was recorded. For those who could not stay with us the whole hour, for those who want to look again at the presentation that Maya shared with us or that Sean shared with us, you can always find the recording on the CICC YouTube channel. I invite you to log in and listen again to the recording. From now, yes, sorry, we have to go. It's the end of the hour. Thank you all so much for being here today. Take care and good luck if you decide to submit to the next Bird Foundation call for companies. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
תודה, אורי.